Good morning, stampers and crafters. Welcome to the Team Stamp It monthly blog hop. The theme today is summer, so I wanted to create with you this fun, colorful, we're going to be using our blending brushes, and we're going to go to the beach today. We had a colorful sunset. This could even be a sunrise, but since I'm having cocktails, I'm going to think it's sunset. So let's jump right in and get started. Some of the things you're going to need for this one is the Timeless Tropical set. We're going to use some palm trees and a little bit of the greetings here. Also, there's nothing better than that. And I thought a tropical drink goes perfect with a beach sunset, so we're going to be using this one. You're also going to need your playful alphabet dies and your stitched rectangles if you have them to create the frame. As you see, this is a popped up frame. This is one of my favorite techniques to do a popped up frame and then inlay your image. So I've already done that, and we've got our card base, which is an A2 card base, and I usually do this with the thicker basic white cardstock. So this is cut at 4 by 5 1/4, and then I used my stitched rectangle to cut out the center. You can also just cut out the center with your trimmer, so kind of use whatever you have. So then I put my adhesive strips on here. I've already taken my contact paper off here, so it's a little sticky. But what I do is, in order to get this on here centered, what I'll do is I will put glue right over the adhesive, and then it gives you the opportunity to move and square the frame, because when these frames aren't squared on the card, you can very easily see it. So I just put glue right over the adhesive and then center my frame. And see, you have the opportunity to move it a little bit so you can get it centered. Okay. I'll try to fast forward through parts of this tutorial because there's some, doing the blending brushes takes a little bit of time, so I'll try to edit where I can here. So we've got our frame and we're all set, and we're going to set that aside. Now we have our image piece. So I'm going to show you a couple of different things you can do here with your image. Now this one, I did not mask these trees after I stamped them and did my sponging. And to me, they're a little bit, they're not as vibrant as I'd like them to be. So we're going to try a couple different things we can do to keep these trees really pretty. So we're going to change this up just a little bit. So we want to start with our palm trees. And let's go ahead and get this in here. And I'm going to put them closer to the bottom and off the edge just a little bit so that we have plenty of room. And now to color these, to make a two-tone color, I'm going to bring in my inks here, and I want to do the top of the pine trees in Granny Apple. So I'm just going to partially ink up my stamp to get that Granny Apple on there. And then I will take a baby wipe or tissue. I'm going to wipe it off of the trunks. And then I'll just use my soft suede marker, go to the feather tip, and color your trunks with the feather tip of your marker. This is a marker to stamp technique. It's a good way to get multicolors into your images. And you can huff on that if you've given it too much time to dry. Huff on it means to just breathe on it, and the moisture of your voice, of your breath, will reactivate the ink. And we're just going to stamp that. See there, then we end up with our two-tone. Now, I want to add a little bit of two-tone to these palm fronds. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my, which one is this? Shaded Spruce, which is a darker green, and I'm just going to do the same thing, but I'm just going to add some little areas on these palm fronds, some little darker accents, and that'll give us a really pretty two-tone on our palm tree. So we're going to huff on that again, and then just stamp it down. And so you end up with a really pretty two-tone on your palm tree. So that's a fun technique to do when you're stamping. Now, there's a couple of different ways that we can keep these palm trees vibrant, okay? You can, if you have masking fluids, okay? You have the Molotow graphic masking fluid, or I have a fine line masking fluid pen. This has got a really nice fine tip for doing detailed masking. And then I have trouble. There we go. Or what we're going to do, because you may not have these masking fluids, is we're going to bring in our Versamark and our clear embossing powder. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to Versamark up this image because I haven't moved it. I'm going to stamp it right over my palm tree again. And then we're going to add the clear embossing powder. Now, I'm going to give you a hint right now. Do as I say, or do as I say, not as I do. I would have used your embossing buddy here, because you don't want any embossing powder in places you don't want, because we're going to be sponging and it'll leave white spots. So I would suggest using your embossing buddy. So we're just going to put a little bit of clear embossing right over this. Let's go ahead and heat set that. That's going to keep our palm trees really bright and clear. Now, if you do something like I just did, I'm going to show you a fix. See where I forgot to color in my palm tree, and that's going to be white? what you can do is bring in your Stampin' Blend, because your Stampin' Blends will cover or color over embossing powder. So I'm just going to use a little bit of crumb cake here and go over my palms here. There we go. Get rid of some of that white. Okay. So now we're going to add our greeting. And our greeting you can do with your clear, which is going to leave it white. Or if you want it a little bit brighter, you can do it with white embossing. So we're going to do a partial stamping. Let's move our palm tree aside here. And I want only the rest and relax here. You can do the whole one if you want, but what I want is just a partial amount. So I'm going to bring that out. And I'm going to place my greeting where I want it. So I'm going to come down a little bit, because remember, on this one I've got the summer kind of going over the top, so I want to leave space for that to go over. If you need to, what you can do is measure the size of your letters and then determine, you know, how far down you need to come. But I'm just kind of guesstimating it here, and I'm just going to come down a ways. And now I want to white emboss that, but I only want part of it. So what I'm going to do is take a sticky note and I'm going to cover the portion of the stamp that I don't want to show. Just going to stick that sticky note right on there. Now we want to remember to use our embossing powder. So we don't get embossing where we don't want it. We're going to ink that up with our Versamark. Oh, don't forget to pull off your paper. And now we're just going to white emboss that. Bring in our scrap paper. You can kind of put it in the right light to see if you have any embossing powder where you don't want it. We look pretty good there. If not, just take a little brush and make sure you don't have it where you don't want any. We look pretty good there. Okay, now you have created your emboss resist technique. And now let's do some sponging, or you can use, I love using these new blending brushes. They're soft, they blend so well. And then what I do is I mark my blending brushes so that I'll use one for all my blues or all my yellows. And so I keep it that way. So what we're going to do is I want to do a kind of a rainbow sunset. So we're going to do some purples, we're going to bring in some bright pinks, coming down into some oranges and lighter fade of orange, our water and our beach. So what I want to do is I want to determine where I want my water line and where my beach line is going to go. So all I'm going to do for that is bring in another sticky note, and to help you line it up straight, using your grid paper, let me see if I can move in a little bit for you guys. Okay, let's try that. We'll move down a little. Okay, so I lay my paper on the grids. Pick a grid, you pick the main lines here, or whatever you need. But I'm going to kind of put it in the middle here. And I want my water to probably be about there, about a third of the way up your palm trees. And then I'll just lay my sticky note straight across. There you go. And you got your straight line. So you can do this either way. You can start from your darks down to your lights, or your lights up to your darks. That's entirely up to you. Sometimes I do it either way. So let's try from the top to the bottom. So I'm going to bring in some Gorgeous Grape for my purple. And the colors I'll be using here, and I'll fast forward through this part for you, is Gorgeous Grape. And then I'm going to layer in some Polished Pink, bring in our Pumpkin Pie, and finish off at the waterline with my Bumblebee Yellow. Okay? And then when we get to the water, I'll reverse my mask, and we'll be using some Pacific Point, some Crumb Cake, and a little bit of soft suede for our sand. So I'll check back in with you. I'll fast forward through this for you. Okay, so now we've got our sunset here, and you can keep blending your areas as much as you want, or as colorful as you want. So now we're going to reverse mask here, and when you do this, leave just a tiny, tiny smidge of the top color showing. My sticky's not wanting to stick. Just a tiny little bit of color there showing because your paper is going to add a line there. So, and now let's bring in our precipit point. And what we can also do is add another mask for our sand. So we can just do that, right? We want the trees to be in the sand. So let's come up just a little bit off those trees. Okay, and now we'll add our sand. Use crumb cake. To add just a little bit of texture to our beach, let's just tear a piece of paper. Bring in a little bit of your soft suede, a little bit darker brown. And we want a little spot where the trees, and then just lightly take your brush and go at the edge of the paper there. See there? This will give it the kind of, got some rough areas in the sand here. See there? Adds a little texture to your sand. You can also take your soft suede marker and just add a couple little dots in the sand. And now to give our ocean some texture, first off, let's grab a Kleenex and let's wipe off our embossing here. See, you just rub it a little with a Kleenex and it gets that ink right off there and gives you a nice bright look. That is basically emboss resist stamping. Okay, now see, it did make a big difference on these trees. So remember I told you this one, I didn't put any type of resist or mask on those. And although that looks good, look how vibrant the trees are here. Okay, so it's an option. Just want to throw them out there for you. So let's move some of this aside. Now I'm going to bring in my white gel pen. Mine is actually an acrylic painter. It's a white, it's like a white gel pen. I'll see if I can put a link to it in the description. So now I'm just going to take and I'm going to add little tiny wave lines on my water. And to add my beach right there, I'm going to do kind of a little scriggly. This is the foam of the water crashing on the sand. Surprisingly, it makes quite a bit of difference. And there you go, you have your beach scene. If you want that to pop just a little bit more, take your soft suede and go right underneath that white in a couple of areas. And it gives it depth. Not necessary, but just something you can do. So now, let's go ahead and get our cup made and our summer. So I'm going to use a piece of scrap here, and I want to create my ombre summer. So all I'm going to do is bring in my yellow and my orange and create an ombre sheet that I can die cut my letters. I don't even need that. Let's do it. So we got our letters now, and then I stamped and colored my cocktail, and that is the Stampin' Nothing's Better Than. And you can create the ice cubes and everything by two-step stamping here. And what I stamped that one with was the pale papaya to come out with a nice two-tone, and then used my dark pale papaya stamping blend to add just a little bit of highlight, and then colored my orange and my umbrella. All the colors I used will be in the description below. And to save you watching me fussy cut that, I just fussy cut it out. And remember I told you, see how you have these little white marks when you fussy cut? What you can do is just take your marker. You can either use your black Stampin' Right, or you can use, let's see if I have it here. Sometimes I'll just use my black Stampin' Blend, but all you do is take the feather tip, and a lot of times I'll do this from the back side so I don't mess up my image, is I just go over those edges, right? See how I did that? That's why you want to do it from the back side. And just go over those edges a little bit with your black marker, and it'll cover those whites. Okay, you can hit it a little on the front here if you need to. There you go. Now, let's assemble our card. Okay, so remember we've got our card base already. And then what I do is I take my glue, and I do this with glue because you can shift it around in the space. Let's add a little bit of glue here. Get my glue going. And then just tuck in the top. Push it down and shift it in the space till it's squared up in there. I really like this technique with the dimension that a frame adds. So now to add our little gizmos, now since that frame is popped up, we need to be able to put little tiny dimensionals on our lettering that is not touching the frame so that it'll be level. Okay, so what I did is I bring in my little mini dimensionals, and I know that my cocktail is going to be a little bit on the frame there and a little bit on the picture. So on the side that's going on the picture, I'll take a little dimensional here. Oops. Try to figure out where it's going to go. So we know one's going to go there. Let's put one behind the orange. And I'll do one of the letters too and show you how I did it so you have an idea. Now, the part that's going to be on the frame, I'm just going to put a little tiny dab of glue to hold it into place. So let's put our cocktail right down here in the corner. So you're glued to the frame and then you're popped up on the inside of the photo. And you're going to do that same technique with the letters. Now some of these letters are really thin. So we know our summer, only a little bit of that S is going to stick out on there. So what I do is I take my mini dimensionals, and you can either cut the actual dimensional or, where's my snips? I lost my snips. Take the edge of your dimensionals and cut tiny little strips. So you can cut dimensional any size you need. I only needed a little tiny piece on that S. So I'm going to lay it here and figure out where I need that. So I only need it right here. Sometimes it's a little difficult for me with my hand. My fingers don't want to work, but the only reason you can't do it with your, like cutting the letters out with the foam backing, is because then it may pop up too much if it's on the frame too. So I'm just going to put my little dimensional on there, and you can trim if you have any white there, you can just trim it off. So we'll take this, then we'll add our glue where it's going to be on the frame. And stick it down. There you go. And we're going to do that through the rest of the letters. there we go. I know that's a little tedious, but what a cool effect is it? You know what I mean? So it's a little tedious when you're doing like micro dots, but it's fun. So that is today's card. It's fun, it's simple, it's colorful, and I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoy the rest of the blog hop, and be sure to leave a comment, hashtag Stamp It Contest, to be entered to win a free prize. The winner of the prize will be announced in next month's blog hop. I hope you have a happy stamping day. Bye-bye now.